Hi, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show, your monthly roundup of strange, quirky things outside the world of the normal, into the paranormal. And we decided to call ourselves the Paranormal Peep Show, Andy's suggestion about 5 years ago, because we thought we'd take a dip into the world of the paranormal, a slight peep into beyond the veil or beyond the space and time that we normally inhabit. Now, we had some strange news. I'll say, Andy, how are you, first of all? But we can discuss this, can't we? Our strange news that we got earlier this week. How are you, Andy?
So it's I'm pretty good. We're over this little minor emergency that we had during the week. But Neil, if you want to explain what went on, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, as many listeners know, although we go out on various podcasting platforms like Spreaker and iTunes and Amazon Music, and also we go out on YouTube and Rumble as our visual versions. It came to our attention, someone wrote into the Paranormal UK Radio Network that apparently there is another show going out by the same name as the Paranormal Peep Show. And we did a little bit of investigating. It turns out there's an American podcast that began probably sometime in May, also, strangely enough, called the Paranormal Peep Show. So we went further digging, and our show producers, if you like, that's Irene and Mark, dug into it and found out that this got about 5 or 6 episodes, been going since about May. Based in America, it's a man and a lady doing their show. And it just so happens to be called the Paranormal Peep Show. We thought, what's the odds of that? Have they deliberately stolen it? I don't think they deliberately stole it. I think it was literally they just came up with that name, as you did 5 years ago, Andy. And I think it was malice on their part.
After a bit of digging, as you say, they've had 5 episodes since May. I actually got an email from them. From the guy, and he genuinely seemed like he had no idea that we existed, which is bizarre because you'd think if you're going to come up with a name for like a radio show, you'd just do a very basic Google search. And had they done a very basic Google search, they would have found an absolute treasure trove of everything to do with the Paranormal Peep Show to do with us. Now, their take is that they don't really want to change what they've already done because they'd have to re-record it. But they have agreed not to continue using the Paranormal Peep Show name and hopefully going to come up with something different. If anyone kind of finds some Paranormal Peep Show stuff that's not our logo and not me and Neil doing it, that ain't us. It's nothing to do with us. We're not affiliated with them. They're not affiliated with us. Completely separate.
Yeah, I mean, I did a search. I did find them. It's fairly easy to find them. I think, like you said, 5 or 6 episodes. I listened to the first episode to try and find out if they would actually talk about how they came up with their Paranormal Peep Show name. I didn't get any clues on that. But they did say that they've already recorded their show for August. And as they've already got it in the can, they don't really want to go back and edit it and call themselves something different. But I actually thought, well, you could just change the introduction to say, hi, folks. This is going out as the Paranormal Peep Show, but we've got to tell you we are changing our name from September or something. Just some little, kind of cursory nod to us or something, but that's their decision. I think we kind of let them off the hook, or Mark and Irene have, and we kind of just told them, and they're going to do what they say, thank goodness. So a bit of a surprising news. It seemed a bit sort of off-putting, but we will get through it. I just want to shout out, before I forget, a little shout out to a guy called Hugo I met back in Birmingham. I think it was back in June or early July. I did a talk for Kieran Woodhouse, who we had on as a guest earlier this year, and he invited me up to his group, a kind of truth seekers type group. I can't remember the actual name of it now. up in the Dudley area. And a chap called Hugo helped me load up my car at the end of the evening with my paintings and things like that. And apparently he said, I do listen to your podcast. I said, oh, that's great. Thank you very much. So I said, I'll give him a shout out. So thanks again, Hugo, for all your help.
And another shout out to the person who actually spotted the other Paranormal Peep show, because me and Neil had no idea that this was going on. So whoever listens to us and saw the other, let's call it the copycat Paranormal Peep show, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you indeed. Yeah. On to other news, and I know that you believe, Andy, that we're going into clown world. Definitely.
I have something ready, actually, Neil. I have something ready.
Yeah, go for it.
I use this for airsoft. So this is my little jester clown.
Oh right, bye. What's that? A gun, is it, or?
No, it's a hammer.
A hammer. Oh, I see.
With it's not quite fading into view for some reason.
Oh
but,
right, I can see it. Yes, like a wicked clown head on the top of a Thor type hammer that says bye bye.
For anyone who doesn't know what this is all about, I am slightly nuts and slightly eccentric, but I play airsoft, which is kind of like paintball, and it has like little plastic pellets and things. Now, I've been playing airsoft for about 15 years, and it's all very well and great and everything, dressed up in military, but it's got to the point where it gets a little bit boring, and I wanted to amp it up a little bit. So now I've got a clown outfit and a clown hammer and an actual working chainsaw with the chain removed for obvious reasons. So one of the themes we have is clown, ready for Halloween. So I'm going to be chasing people with the clown hammer.
Excellent.
Excellent.
I hope we can see some photos or video clips of you maiming and killing.
all in the best possible taste, of course.
Of course, yeah. So carrying on with that clown agenda, I was filling in a form a couple of weeks ago, and it just got crazy as where they ask you these like survey things at the end to find out where you come from, are you male or female, what's your age group, etc. And it just got incredibly weird, because you talk about the transgender thing and a few transgenders, but you said before it seems to always get a bit sort of going in strange direction. Well, on this form it was asking me, am I male or female, transgender, gender neutral, non-binary, agender, pangender, gender queer, two-spirit, which I thought was a bit weird, third gender, whatever that was, or prefer not to say. So I think I must have said prefer not to say. But at the end of after all that, it then cheekily asked me to tick this box and press a button to prove that I was human, which I thought was incredibly ironic. After I've been all those kind of different descriptions, I definitely think we are getting into some sort of weird agenda there with, years ago, you just put male, female, prefer not to say, but now they want to know the ins outs of everything, And I think even if I am a two queer, two spirit, whatever, what business is of theirs to know this sort of thing, and how does it help them if they do know? It's a bit of a strange one going on.
I was going to say, like, what difference would it make? Like, let's say you're, I don't know, gender queer, non-binary, fluid. What difference would it make to the ultimate goal of whatever this form is trying to achieve?
And why doesn't it give me an opportunity to ask them what they are? It always asks you.
Yeah, I think, Neil, because I think we should start a new thing on the show. So in the same way there's kind of like 5-star reviews for like movies and stuff, I think we should have honk reviews. So how out of 5, how many honks would you give that?
Oh, about 5 out of 5, I think. For
5. Okay, reviews. In that case, we will give it. So that's 5 honks of the clown form, of the clown horn for that form. I just want to say, before we continue, like, as you know, Neil, I go to a lot of very alternative clubs, and I meet a lot of very diverse people, and I meet trans people and gay people and lesbian people and gender fluid people and all sorts of things, and I don't care. Like, if someone wants to be whatever they want to be, then go for it. I just don't care. I'm pretty like open-minded in that respect. What I do care about is first of all kind of the militancy of it, because it's not just kind of like this is what we are. There's this kind of militancy of you must also believe it, you must be forced to believe it, and if you question anything then you're a Nazi bigot and you must be banned and cancelled. So I really don't like this kind of like this almost militant kind of like cult like behavior surrounding all this kind of thing, and I really do feel we should be in a position where we can debate and question everything, in a civilized society. And as soon as you can't question things, we go into very dangerous ground. And you've probably seen the thing recently, Neil, about the guy who got arrested for like a tweet that he put up, and he has 7 police officers come
Oh
out.
yeah, that's right. That was incredible, wasn't it? It was a retweet of something to do with the rainbow thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or something?
So there was a guy called Lawrence Fox, and he got this kind of like
Actor guy, isn't he?
new kind of trans rainbow type flag, and he arranged it in a swastika type thing, which you could argue is probably kind of bad taste. But he was saying that it's not about comparing them. He's not saying that the gay people are Nazis. Obviously, it's not about that. He was saying that there's this kind of almost fascist like mentality, this kind of like this as I say, hyper militant mindset of, if you're not one of us, then you must be cancelled in a kind of fascistic way. And this is what he was trying to represent with this. And 7 police officers came around, not to the guy who created the meme, but somebody liked the meme, and then somebody else got, quote, social anxiety. This is really dangerous for freedom and democracy. Now, I'm not in a position, and I don't particularly want to go around offending people, and I don't want to kind of like get in people's faces. But equally, I do stand up for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And if you're not inciting violence upon somebody, then you do have the right to be offensive. I'm sorry. The sacrifice you make in a free society is the freedom to offend people, even sometimes if that comes in slightly bad taste. Because if we go down this slippery slope of hate speech, and I'm offended, and I've got social anxiety because what you said, then we're going to find more and more comedians being cancelled, comedy shows being cancelled, people just saying everyday things being cancelled, and then we're in North Korea. So I want to cancel culture.
Yeah, and also there was a comparison, the fact that it was Hampshire police that went to arrest this guy, 5 or 6 policemen, because this person who reported it was slightly anxious over this tweet. But the fact is that it was also reported that Hampshire police have got 82 burglaries unsolved.
Yes. yeah.
Maybe they should spend more positive time trying to solve the burglaries rather than 5 coppers going around to arrest someone on a tweet. I mean,
I believe the total was actually 7 coppers, is what I've heard.
7 coppers.
So 7 coppers wasting time investigating a mean tweet whilst there's burglaries and people's valuables that are going missing and never to be seen again. And they're even saying that some police forces, I don't know if it's specifically Hampshire, some police forces are saying we're now no longer sending out officers to attend burglaries. So that's the situation. There is some light at the end of the tunnel, Neil. Apparently, some police forces are indeed cancelling the whole what do they call it? Hate speech re-education centres. If that doesn't send cold shivers down your spine like the Soviet gulags, I don't know what will. But so what's happening, or what used to happen, is that if somebody has a mean tweet and somebody's offended, it would be the case where it's almost like when you have a speeding fine. Instead of going to court, they'll offer you like a speed awareness course. With this, a similar thing, I don't know if you've even heard of this, was hate speech re-education courses. I mean, are we in Stasi Germany? Is this East Berlin in the 1960s? But they're now scrapping them because there's been such a backlash, and it's so authoritarian and so communist, basically, that they're now finally getting rid of them. Thank God.
Well, there's people been trying to get into the local library to borrow books, and apparently they've closed the libraries at certain places certain days because they're having a drag queen do story time. And all the kids are invited to go to the library, listen to a drag queen do story time. And anybody else who wants to get in can't get in the library.
It gets worse with the drag thing. So what I will say is, again, I go to very alternative clubs, and I meet a lot of people, including drag people and including trans people, and on the whole they're lovely people. However, we need to look at some cases in America where drag queen story times, it has come to light in the mainstream news out there that some of them have child porn things going on. They've actually kind of had jail time, and they're felons. Not all, but some are. This is an issue. I've also seen videos where there's kids in these kind of like these drag centres, like being encouraged to throw money, like a pole dancing stripper type thing. and the parents are there with the kids. I know you're looking confused, Neil, but you can absolutely find this. It's out there, and there's a huge backlash with this. And I actually feel sorry. I tell you who I feel sorry for. I feel sorry for the drag queens and the trans people who are against this kind of thing, and they do exist, who don't want kids anywhere near strip shows and drag queen story time, that kind of thing. So it's almost like the rotten apple is spoiling it for everybody else, and it's quite concerning. It is quite concerning.
Yeah. Now, I heard some of this stuff on GB News, which I think you illuminated me to GB News, because you said it's quite refreshing and stuff like that. And,
GB News.
Yeah, so I catch up. I don't watch it live. I catch up with it via their YouTube channel. I watch a lot of GB News reports. Interesting. They've had some very good stuff on the medically induced procedures that people have been invited to take over these past 2 years, and the damages that's been done to some of those people by these medically induced procedures. In fact, I'm quite amazed that GB News hasn't been taken off of YouTube, considering that they go full throttle into it, talking about damages to people and that kind of stuff by these ouchie fouchies and things like that. But
Mark Stein is amazing. I love Mark Stein, and like you, I sometimes watch GB News with my jaw dropped, thinking, how are they still on air? From what I can understand, the only I suppose terrestrial mainstream news channel in any way, shape or form challenging what's going on. I mean, if you just want to hear what the system says, just listen to BBC News. If you just want to hear what the big pharma corporations want you to hear, just listen to BBC News, Channel 4 News, ITV News, Sky News, all the mainstream ones, and they're not, from what I can see, none of them are challenging anything at all whatsoever except GB News. So hats off to GB News.
Yeah, they're quite open-minded. I mean, they had our actual guest that we've got on tonight talking about UFOs. So I think as we're talking GB News, we might as well invite our guest over to talk about his experience on there and some other shows. Welcome, Tony Topping. Are you there?
Hi, Tony.
Yeah, good evening. Are you all right, lads? Good evening.
Yes, nice we are. Good to see you again, Tony. Now, it's been a while since we've had you on the Paranormal Peep Show, but I did catch up with you at the Lytham St Anne's Probe Conference, didn't I? Because I did a little report there, and you was included. Did you enjoy your Probe conference?
Yes, I did, mate. I was, as I say, I was astounded at your directional skills, and I am hoping to recruit you in the months ahead to do a film about me when my book comes out. We're still, so I'll be looking forward to that, Neil. I think you did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Probe, very good. Awake and Aware, very good. It was just good to attend these venues, and just and obviously my material. I went through a phase with my material where it was stagnated in some way, and then it suddenly took off all again, and I could understand what was going on. And of course, you've worked on the book I, Alien. I had to read my book I, Alien. You edited it, but I had to rewrite it all again. The art in it is to die for. I'm very proud of it. And there you go, matey. So ask away any questions you want, pal.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start off with GB News.
It was good to catch up with you, Tony, at the UFO thing in Watford, the Awake and Aware thing. So,
yeah.
And a big thank you for kind of. I was there as a kind of like a guest of Tony Topping. So thank you, Tony.
You're all right, mate. No, you're very welcome. I will always get online abuse. I'll always get people saying I'm a crank. I'll always get people saying I'm a fantasist, and I don't give a toss.
Best way to be.
I know what I have lived through, and when they tell us that we do not know what UFOs are, in the mainstream, you only have to ask me as a contact experiencer, and I know what UFOs are, and I know what's behind them. We've been to hell and back with it, and it's very creepy and very nefarious, the agenda that we're seeing around us at the moment. We're being warned by them, we have been for quite a while. But anyway, fellas, you ask away any questions you want. I suffer. One of the things I was just going to say, lads, is that I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I manage it very well, but that's not surprising considering all that I've been through. And I was trying to kind of get that opinion out there on that fateful day. I went to that certain studio with that certain presenter. I'm going to call him the presenter concerned. I'm not going to name him. You guys, please carry on. But for me, just to cover me, I'm just going to call him the presenter concerned. And there we go. We can probably get into that as well, can't we?
Do you mind us naming him? Because we can do.
You name him, Nate. Yeah, you name him all you want. I'll just to cover me, I'll call him the presenter concerned, and
Yeah.
I think, just to cover me.
Neil, you've come across this as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, there was a real stark contrast. I thought that, getting back to GB News, the gentleman that interviewed Tony there was, fair play to him. He had an open mind, and he listened to Tony, and you had a nice, friendly discussion.
Yeah,
talked about your experiences. I don't know. They probably give you a 5-minute slot. Nothing major, but it's something, I guess. And you got to try and get a lot of information out in a coherent way within 5 minutes. And really, it's like, I don't guess you're trying to convince people, but they're interested in knowing what your experiences are, and then for people to digest it and maybe go on to research it, read your book or watch a video or something like that, and maybe come to some kind of opinion or a conclusion. And the guy, fair play to him, he said, you'd be daft not to believe in this kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing I got from that, to have an open mind is much, much better than having a closed mind about this and say it doesn't exist. So he seemed a fair guy. But then when you went on to the other show with the guy that's in the whaling industry, who opens his mouth and is quite happy to open his mouth and give more abuse than anybody, he just was, he knows how to be struck off people's Christmas card lists, I think.
I was disgusted with him, considering I listened to him when I was going through quite a lot of abuse as a young boy. Really, about 10 to 11 years of age, I was in poor housing conditions. I was being abused quite regularly, and it's what he said off mic that was equally as disgusting as what he said on mic.
Oh wow!
For example, I know you've been abused, but that doesn't cut it with me.
Wow.
I couldn't care fucking less that you sat in my studio. That was all off mic, and then there's the other bit with the presenter concerned where things just went bad. The most hilarious joke of all, which I think your listeners may find hilarious, however, and I found it, I've spent years involved in the unseen and the hidden. And he puts up this picture, one of my drawings, and it says the words on it, Fiat Lux, let there be light. And he puts that up for all to see. And I thought, that's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious. It's one of my drawings. It's got the word Fiat Lux on it. He puts it up to all to see while ridiculing it. The joke, the comical irony of that, I just couldn't get my head around. But there you go, lads. Anyway, but please carry on with what you want to.
So this was the for anyone interested. This was the I think it was the Talk Radio. What was the actual radio show called?
Yeah, it's Talk TV, and it was the presenter concerned, as we all know, was in the whaling industry. He goes out on at 10 o'clock, I think, on weekends. What is my bone of contention with them is the fact that I've appeared for ITV this morning. I've appeared for GB News. I've done all sorts of things. What is my bone of contention with Talk TV and him is that I contribute to Talk TV's daytime output regarding UFOs from the headlines, from Ian Collins to Kevin O'Sullivan. So to suddenly turn up there and be, let us say, and suddenly have all that hurled at you is just not on.
What was the actual show called?
Sorry?
What was the show called? What was it?
Yeah, it's I think it's James Whale, the James Whale Show, Talk TV.
Like yourself, Tony, I used to watch him in the 1990s on TV. He was on ITV, and he had the James Whale Show. It was called back then, and I used to love him, and I used to love his guests. And watching him attack you in the way that he did, I thought was really disappointing. I thought he could have done better. I was hoping he might approach it with an open mind, but obviously he didn't. I feel this was kind of a hit job, actually. Whether it was his own volition to attack you or whether he was told to attack you from above, we don't know. It's probably he decided to himself. But it'd be interesting to see what the backlash is. I did read some of the comments because there are YouTube clips of it, and a lot of them did seem to be saying that he was a little bit too harsh, that you should have given you more time to explain, and as you say, he kind of ridiculed your artwork. But why invite somebody on the show if you don't believe them, or if you're if your agenda isn't just to kind of destroy them? Did you approach them, or did they ask you?
No, they approached me, mate. So what it is, right. Yeah. So
they asked you. on
Yeah,
their
so,
show?
yeah, of course. Yeah, they asked me. So I think that I'm going down there to
Mm.
do what I normally do for that TV station for Kevin O'Sullivan, Ian Collins, can't remember, there was another presenter, you know, and that's what I thought I was doing until I got there. And suddenly the verbal attack fire opened up on me. It was uncalled for. It was unwarranted. There was no need for it. And it wasn't even entertaining. It was three blokes, two blokes ganging up on me. It was like a pub brawl. It wasn't even interesting, wasn't even entertaining. And the bit I found a bit disturbing is when they walked in with my artwork like a pair of clowns, the production staff. They may have needed clown outfits because they walked in. I found that creepy, actually. And it's rare I get creeped out, but I have a sense, you know, a sense of the hidden and what is not seen. I always have had. And you're never sat there for the reason that you think, you know. So he then proceeds, doesn't he, to go through it all, doesn't let me get a word in edgeways, tells me that the biggest, I think the creepiest and most astonishing part was the bit where they altered one of my pictures so the presenter concerned could then turn around and say, oh, well, a 2-year-old did that. Oh, and this is your evidence, and a 2-year-old did that. And he looked at the screen, but for a split second, you had the full image of it, which is my Jacob's Ladder image. And then it kind of like was defiled into a different thing altogether. Because, Andy, it's all to do with the control and war of consciousness. At an esoteric level, it's to do with that. There's an agenda. It's to do with all that. As you open the, it is.
So going on the clown theme, out of 5, how many honks would you like to give the James Whale show?
Oh, we need 10.
10. Okay.
No.
So that's 10 honks out of 5 for James Whale and the James Whale show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was absolutely disgusting. And I even said to him across Twitter how absolutely disappointed I was with him. But he, in his words, he couldn't care fucking less. So that's all fair enough. You know, you know, I'm used to it. I know that I get robustly challenged by journalists. It can happen, but I'm not putting up with that. And so I ended up walking out the door because I'm not putting up with it. It's caused a big debate among my friends. And
it would be slightly different if you'd approached them and said, I would like to come on your show and I've got proof and I've got a book. Then one could argue that James Whale has got a right to, you know, kind of probe for the proof and kind of like be you know, rambunctious about it. But they approached you. They brought you on their show.
Correct.
Now, imagine if they did that to anybody else. Imagine if they brought a rabbi on show and then decided to completely destroy the Old Testament of the Book of Moses. Imagine if they brought the Archbishop of Canterbury and decided to deride him over the Bible. Imagine if they brought a Muslim Sufi and decided to destroy the Quran in front of him. I don't think they would do that, but it's okay. Apparently, it's okay to bring a UFO researcher on and then destroy his stuff in front of him, according to them.
Yes, absolutely. But also, if you're working at the realm of the esoteric and the subconscious, where this battle is, where this agenda actually is, you will discover that those images that I was showing have religious implications towards the supreme consciousness, towards the creator. Therefore, it was defiled. Therefore, I was actually finding it blasphemous. I didn't say anything, but I was watching this and I'm thinking, you're not there for the reason that you think. And this agenda, in some cases, certain people don't know what's controlling them, so it's never as it appears. You know, so I ended up walking out. I'd had enough, so I ended, first time ever in years of doing this that I'd walked out of a studio. I mean, I thought GB News was going to give me a very difficult time, but GB
they didn't.
No, luckily for me, I'm on very friendly terms with the producer there. She's absolutely lovely.
I love
it. Wasn't their intention, not at all. As soon as I walked through the studio, but with them, very different indeed. They'd planned that. They knew what they were doing.
That was totally planned. They knew exactly what they were going to do. It was an elephant trap, basically.
But the thing is that nobody learned, Andy. I mean, if they'd have put a psychologist there, I'd have been interested to hear what the psychologist said about all this. Because as I said on GB News, you know, I've got to have the caveat in, is somebody messing with my head? Have I got some sort of neuro distortion going on? Is it some sort of savantness that makes my mind absolutely creative in this area? You've got to add these caveats there, I think, for people. When the bottom line happens, as I said on GB News, the bottom line is this: I've had interaction with this phenomena. I know what's behind it. I know who they are. I don't know why. And people will call me a crank and a fantasist, and I don't give a shit. You've got to stand by your conviction. But when it gets to levels of abuse where nobody's learning anything, it's time to leave the studio. Nobody was learning anything there, and it wasn't even interesting, was it?
No, I found it very cringeworthy. Very cringeworthy.
There was a lot of support I noticed on the YouTube channel when I was reading it. The comments, a lot of people. I mean, there's one or two that said, "Oh, I think James Whale's right," but a good percentage seemed to lean on support for you and thought that it was terrible treatment of you from the comments I read. So
I actually think it reminded me of when Terry Wogan interviewed David Icke and that mentality. Now, this was early 90s, and for people who don't know, David Icke is
very accurate, Andy.
Quote conspiracy theorist, but turns out most of what he says is actually true. But the way that Terry Wogan treated David Icke was very kind of, again, it was tongue in cheek. It was taking the piss. It was very kind of against him. And I think since then things have changed, and a lot of people are now kind of more realizing that Icke was right on a lot of things, not everything, but on a lot of things. And then Terry Wogan tried to do the same thing again a second time shortly before he died, and it didn't go well. And David held his ground and kind of fought back and came out better than Terry Wogan, actually. I think James Whale was trying to do a Terry Wogan from the early 90s, not realizing that actually the audience ain't thinking like that anymore. The audience are more open-minded. The audience want to hear about UFO stuff and alien stuff and ghost stuff, and they may not necessarily agree with it or believe it, and that's fine, but they are interested in it and they want to hear more about it. And I think that the way James Whale treated you was the Terry Wogan mindset of the 1990s, and that's old hat. That's history. That's in the past.
There's something went on when I left the studio that was paranormal related that I actually can't talk about.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's how can you put it into words? The reality around us is not as it appears, and has been like that since biblical times. The Bible points to a battle of darkness and light, and that's as far as I'll go with that after what happened when I left it. But other than that, the paranormal activity continues around me. The phenomena is clearly flying over me. I interact with the phenomena. We kind of have a liaison with them beyond the norm. I've written the book now. It is complete. I've got the imagery from it, and the kind of the picture that he defiled was the Jacob's Ladder one, my version of Jacob's Ladder, which celebrates the intervention of the divine force during an attempted alien abduction. Believe me, the assaults have been horrendous. There is a war going on behind the scenes, and I think the US government, of all governments, are actually fully aware of this. Dates back probably to the Collins elite and the Defense Intelligence Agency when they were researching the demonic component behind the UFO phenomena. And that's where the battle is at. And so, for example, Neil, as you say, you've got all that transgender stuff going on there. Isn't it cool? Isn't it hip? Isn't it trendy? You can express who you want to be. You won't be able to heat your home in winter, though, and the energy companies will be making vast profits. And this is the kind of concerning sleight of hand that is going on at the moment in this magnificent country of ours. It's designed to implode it.
It's global, and you're absolutely right. It's a lot of things. A lot of these things are kind of starting off in America and trickling down. The whole woke thing for a start, but there's so much going on, and I think you're dead on, Tony. There's also the transhuman agenda. All of this is to get us away from being human and away from the human soul. So the transhumanist agenda is to kind of merge man with machine and almost take away the human element and just have us as slave drone robots. You've also got the trans thing and all the kind of LGBTQ blah 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 plus. I think that's about division. I think that's about pitting people against people. Why can't they just say human? Why can't we all just say human? The form that Neil was talking about, why can't it just say human? The only thing that's relevant really on that form is tick a box to say that you're human. It's division, and Even the race thing, the trans thing, it's even young versus old. It's kind of masks versus non-masks, jab versus non-jab. It's all about division, pitting people against each other. And I think, and you probably would agree, Tony, that the dark ones at the top find this absolutely hilarious, how we're destroying each other over this.
Well, yes, but I mean, what good is that when they have no investment left? You know, the biggest esoteric secret of all that is that they want communion with God. The biggest esoteric secret of all is that the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of consciousness, is the most magnificent and prevailing power. It's absolutely incredible. It is higher than any drug. It is magnificent. And as has happened to me, you know, the dark side of the force would maybe like its cake and wants to eat it as well. You know, so with that in mind, it's a wonder as to what is truly going on. For example, if you take Putin, for example, there is a school of thinking that he's some sort of light worker. He certainly isn't. And what is interesting is the fact that what is controlling the minds of men that are doing all this, that is where the war front is. That is where, as I say again, the Collins elite, the DIA of America, they were looking at this very carefully because something is amiss in our world. This is not right. It doesn't look right. It doesn't walk right. You know, it doesn't quack like a duck correctly. And yet everybody's finding it strangely acceptable. And it's not acceptable for humanity to go down this route. And that's why the UFOs and the people behind them are highly complex and highly advanced beings. And we are being lied to. So the bit where they say we do not know what they are, they do, but they don't want to go there for very nefarious reasons, actually, very nefarious reasons. And people are saying, oh, well, there's going to be disclosure, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. They don't disclose anything. They don't say what's actually going on behind the scenes. It's nefarious. And I'm absolutely sick and tired of it. I really am. Yeah. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so whilst we've got you and we've had you on before, maybe if we rewind and go just to remind people a little about your origins, where you came from, and how you became involved in this whole UFO thing. And obviously in your book, you've kind of got the origins yourself written in that story. Very heart-wrenching stuff, I guess I would describe it as.
It is, mate. It is because in the book that it's got my journals in there that I never published. I was going to chuck them in the bin. One of the journals is mysteriously missing, but never mind. But I was gonna put them in the bin, but I didn't, and they sat on my shelf for years. And actually, I strongly believe that they form part of a special operation that I call ESCOVs. I'll get to that in a moment. Let's rewind further back. But life began for me kind of like the book starts with me wandering to the scrap metal merchants at age 10 with a pram, the scraps loaded. It's 1980s Britain. You know, there are men going past in cars, peeping their horn and saying, get a wash, you scruffy, get, and all this kind of, you look like a tramp, blah, waffle. And I was the scruffiest kid on the block. I wore flare trousers, my fingernails were dirty, my neck was black. We lived in a house with no heating, no bathroom. Abuse was a common thing. And there I am walking to the scrap metal merchants because my mum and dad are broke. That was a common occurrence. Abuse was a daily thing. And yet I would be involved in what I believe to be one of the greatest UFO contact stories ever told. These people in the UFOs are not stupid, but I went through hell in childhood, and then I went through hell just trying to cope with it all and looking after my mother who had dementia. And at one point in the proceedings, when I used to literally lift her out of bed by myself and change her, I was the loneliest man in the world. I've seen the sharp end of it. I've seen the ugliness of the UFO phenomenon. ETs are not all fluffy and light. They can be as secretive and as devious as humans. It's populated. The guy who recently passed over, bless him, I've forgotten his name, who talked about the Heinz 57, as in 57 extraterrestrial groups. I would suggest about 50 are out there. The universe is populated. We're being lied to for reasons that went wrong after Roswell, actually.
What do you say, Tony, is the percentage of good guy aliens versus negative aliens?
That's a very good question, Andrew. A really is. You're talking kind of like, I would suggest, from what I've witnessed, 90% are kind of the good guys, but it's 10%, 10% where we've got issues. We really have, and I know.
And in terms of your own interactions, what would you say the ratio is in terms of those who've contacted you or kind of around you?
That's a very good question. Again, the ratio being, I would say, 99% good, but a tricky 1% that we're having to deal with that's very problematic. This 1% is very, very problematic indeed. And it causes what I would describe as an alien Cold War. The thing that I couldn't get over, Andy, and I know both of you heard me at conference talk about this, I could handle the alien stuff. I've seen them. I know what they look like. I've added the caveats in, I'll be honest, that I'm still not sure why this is happening or who is doing it. But the thing that I blew my mind was human beings in the parallel. They're known as humans in the parallel. If you hear Staff Sergeant Robert Dean, one of his lectures there about the NATO assessment, he gave a lecture to UFO magazine and talked about the fact that there are aliens that look like us and we look like them. And if you walk past them in the street, you would never know. You would literally never know. He's quite right on that, because they are termed humans in the parallel. And that's the thing that I couldn't get my head around and still can't. That they're known as humans in the parallel, and from what I understand, they are classed as an alien civilization, and they are classed as being on another planet from us. And it's interesting. The interaction there has been staggering. So there we go. And by the way, just to add, I don't have the intellectual capacity to make this up. I couldn't make it up. So that's the thing. I haven't got. If I made it up, I couldn't, because I've not got the capacity to do so. I'm reporting on these very strange events that have just gone on and on and on, and will do to the end of my life. And I will probably leave this world still not sure why. There you go.
What was the first UFO you recall seeing, Tony?
The first major one that I recall seeing was, now then, that's a good question, was when I was coming back from rehearsal in 1997. And the thing literally came over the house like something out of Close Encounters. They're gone, and I was wandering around for days wondering what that was about. And that was in it was not 97, about 91 was the first one that came in over the house, and it made its presence felt. And the best UFO footage that I never took. So 3 a.m. outside my place of work, this boomerang thing comes right over the top of me, and it's pulsing, and it's gliding across the sky. And unfortunately, I didn't have a camera. It was terrific footage, and it glided. I remember that it wasn't just flying; it just seemed to glide. And I thought, yeah, that's them. And so it just carries on from there, with these UFOs coming in, and there is reason to debunk it. There is very good reason to wheel out, as it happened on the show that I was recently appearing on. There's a hidden agenda to debunk it for very nefarious reasons. Absolutely.
And what was your first ET contact, as in like some kind of entity or being that's not?
97 in the 97 in the I was asleep at the time. I'd just started working. I'd gone through a long period of unemployment. I'd just got quite a job, which the job that I'd got resulted in me becoming a very responsible job. It was high security, and I became a team leader in that area. But at the time I was on night shift, but I saw this vision of this woman who looked to be ET. She wasn't from round here. She was tying her hair back against the mirror. I was catapulted into the old squalid house that I used to live in. And she turned round and looked at me and said, "How do I look?" with her hair turned back.
Why would she catapult you back to your old house? What was
that's a good question as well. I don't know the answer to that, but it's as if they'd set the simulation up so it appeared. What had happened was, Andy, she was looking in my mother and dad's old dresser cabinet in their bedroom, dated from the 1930s, and it was literally, she was there tying her hair back.
So it's almost like I'm drawn back to kind of the Matrix and the construct. You know what the construct is, like this computer simulation that's not real. It's kind of like something where it gives a context of where you are. So it's almost like they've delved into your memory. They found kind of like the squalid house that you're in as a construct to then kind of like create where you are and then insert themselves. But it's Very strange, isn't it? Why wouldn't they keep the modern house that you were in? Why did they have to go back to the old one?
I don't know. It is odd. There's a million oddities towards everything they do. I know that at one point in the proceedings, for example, I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my mother. I needed major hernia surgery, all in the same year. I remember sat in that hospital wondering if I'd get out alive. It was too much for any man to bear. I mean, I'd looked after my mother with dementia for 8 years. And it was truly dreadful. It really was. But I will never forget the ET I saw that was not from here. She was absolutely gorgeous. I still, out of all of them, out of all the interactions I've had, I don't even know her name, but she was the one who was set apart from all of them. She just was absolutely beautiful, amazing lady. She was the one who kind of like healed me of exhaustion, because I was just caving in. I mean, I was wandering around Southport here in states of complete mental exhaustion to the point of collapse after all I'd done, after all that had happened. That happened at the Marine Lake here, where they came over in a UFO with 3 pink triangle lights, was there for 5 seconds and then gone. And across the lakeside, very bright white light came in and then went away. And it was them. And I know that there has been interaction further. She indicates that she's from the Arcturus area. They're known as Arcturians, but in fact, she tells me that they're nearer Bootes than Arcturus. Is somebody downloading all that in my head? Is somebody larking around? Am I completely bonkers? These are the questions that you have to ask yourself most sincerely, because I think when you go down the route of I'm the ambassador to the aliens and I'm the special one, I think you're in dangerous narcissistic territory with it. And that's how cults start, isn't it? And all that kind of thing. So all I do, Andy, I'm like a journalist. I just report what I'm seeing and what I've seen. And there is always going to be people who's not going to believe it. There's always people who might think that. And I understand that. But at the moment, what I want to do, the whole agenda here, is I'm driven by the memory of my mother, but I'm equally driven by leaving a legacy for future generations to review all this, like a paper trail. For some reason, these ETs have got presence here. And Stephen Greer is actually quite correct. They are highly evolved. They really are. But where he's not correct on is the bit where he says aliens don't abduct people and aliens aren't nasty. Well, that's dangerous ground. That's very dangerous ground to walk down, is that, I feel.
For the nasty ones, imagine the nasty ones win, and imagine they get absolutely everything they want. What would that world look like? What's their end goal?
That would not happen, actually. It appears
hypothetically,
hypothetically,
if the new world order gets installed and the aliens, say dark aliens, arrive, would it be a case of wipe out humanity and reinstall negative aliens?
No.
Or what would be their ultimate goal?
It doesn't work like that. No, they don't invade to wipe out humanity. It's to do with control of consciousness. So you wouldn't, for example, love him or hate him, Mr. Putin and what he did in Ukraine. He thinks it's perfectly sane to blow the limbs off men, women, and children with his army. I'm using that, by the way, as an example. But what controls that? What is controlling that? Who is controlling that? For example, China suddenly escalating. Suddenly in Britain, we have a cost of living crisis, an energy crisis, and now we have a cold crisis. That is how you would do it. It's not laser guns down the street. It's control of consciousness. It's MK Ultra on steroids.
So are we talking about kind of this theory that negative beings sap negative energy, like loosh, I think they call it? Is it that?
Yeah, you're talking that the Bible's quite correct, and as are our other spiritual works, indicating of a dimension near us, around us, that is, and manipulating things into, for example, this country. For example, there's a danger of implosion. There's a danger that this country will lose all but everybody, it all appears perfectly sane. All this crisis after crisis, and nobody thinking. I mean, for example, Benjamin Disraeli, the English Prime Minister, actually hinted at that. There are forces out there that control this, and that's how they do it, Andrew. So at the moment, the Americans knew this in 1950, by the way. They'd studied this. They knew. Oddly enough, the Collins elite, for example, they'd studied occult ritual. They understood that this was a trigger effect on humanity. They understood all this. You see the modus operandi, of crisis, conflict, war. Crisis, conflict, war. It's just like a continual modus operandi. What is the ultimate agenda if the aliens took over? I don't know the answer to that, Andy. I really don't know what the end game is with them. I just don't know in terms of that. I really don't. I know that there's a higher evolved consciousness out there, and I know that it watches quite a lot, and it audits what it creates, and it's like a simulation, and it's very complex. That's why I don't think they could pull off Project Bluebeam. I don't think it's possible for humanity to be taken over by aliens, because there's highly evolved extraterrestrial star nations out there watching. They don't.
What's frustrating is that the negative ones don't give a shit about free will, so they'll just barge their way in. But from what I understand, the positive ones, they do respect free will, and so their position is very often, well, the humans are allowing this to happen, so it's their free will, we can't step in. There's that kind of mentality.
In all the years I've dealt with this, I've never got a straight explanation as to why they don't interfere. Never a straight explanation from them. They're as devious as humans. They're as secret as humans. It sometimes can get a bit creepy with them. It's all well and good filming them, but it sometimes can get. This is what it's like for a contact experiencer. You don't know why. Nothing is told to you. In the early days when it began, when I first saw one of the major UFOs come in and illuminate the TV antenna as it did, which has been shown quite a lot, I was having a goon squad follow me. It was very bizarre. Didn't know who they were. Everything you're trying to find out. It's like Jason Bourne and the Bourne identity, except with me, it's the paranormal identity. I'm trying to find out why this has happened. Why is it happening? I don't understand.
I've actually nicked a phrase from you, Tony, so I'll give you credit for it. Circus and pantomime, because myself and a girl you know very well have both experienced the circus and the pantomime. We're well aware of the circus and pantomime, and we use that phrase all the time because it can get stupidly comical sometimes.
Listen, that girl concerned, I wish I know her will. She's very talented. I'm sorry that we fell out. I'm not clear as to why either. I think, I'm just not. But I still admire her talent. I just don't know why, Andy. I really don't. But one thing can be certain: the old effery is about, and it manipulates people's minds. And that's how you invade. That's how they do it. They manipulate minds and consciousness. Of course they do. They don't come down the street with laser guns blazing. It's more creepy and more insipid than that, Really?
When you talk about the Goop Squad, are we talking about actual physical humans following you around, or are we talking about kind of esoteric beings?
No, we were talking at the time, as written in my book, about some people that were following me around. It was very, very mysterious. That they were following me around. It gave me cause for concern. It was very mysterious, and as I write in my book, that all started when the UFOs started coming in. I have an idea where they were and who they were. I'm not going to say that on air at all. I have to be careful. But there was something going on where I was being, shall we say, monitored quite closely by them. To this day, the mystery continues. But it makes sense based on what was going on. It would make sense, without being too paranoid, that I would go into a TV studio and be laughed at with that in the background. I'm hinting at something. With that in the background, I wouldn't entirely get free reign in a TV studio. It would be part of the course that would happen. But then you have got white hats. You have got white hats out there. Do you know what I'm saying? Good people out there in our security services, for example, who I don't think would want the country to implode in this way. It's a good country, and it's a shame. It's just a shame. So there's clearly a division. There was clearly, as I wrote in my journals, a division, Andy. And what was going on was I was having this MK Ultra style mind invasive stuff going on, as well as interaction with the UFOs. And the journals actually point to it being some type of paranormal operation that was going on involving the UFOs and involving a human agency, not governed by the rules of time. If you look at the film Tenet, you will see in that film where they're walking backwards. It's reverse time stream where they're walking backwards, but that was Tenet, wasn't it? But the thing with me is what I call SCOVs in my book, which is Special Contact Operation Very C. There is no back time stream. It's all in real time. The objective being to send a JPEG in real time from galaxy to galaxy. And as the Lockheed Martin people said, they look at the impossible and see how it could be achieved. And that's what they did with SCOVs. They looked at the impossible and saw how it could be achieved, and they achieved it, as far as I'm concerned. And that's in my book, I, Alien. And it's quite incredible, actually. Quite incredible.
Neil?
Right. I think we're going to take a break here, gents. It's coming up to about 55 minutes. Gives us time to replenish our mugs with fresh tea, in my case. So we'll come back with more with Tony Topping on the Paranormal Peep Show after the break.
Join Andy and Neil every month on the Paranormal Peep Show, part of the Paranormal UK radio network, for fun, frolics and lots of information about weird stuff, UFOs, ghosts and things that go bump in the night and everything associated with them. Fascinating guests, fascinating talk, fascinating information.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Peep Show, and we've been told by Neil to smile, so this is me smiling. And welcome back. We haven't been possessed, or have we? We might. Actually, Neil's looking a bit like a ventriloquist dummy with that.
Yeah, don't ask whose hand is where.
Well, Tony's below you, so you know.
Well, I'm sure he'll be very gentle.
Welcome back, Tony Topping.
Hello.
So we was having a quick chat in the break, Tony. We were talking about the various things. I mean, Andy, you might want to come in this because we were discussing this last month about what Simon Parkes could say on TV and what he couldn't. And you said that he wasn't allowed to discuss reptilians or show pictures of them on the Holly and whatever the show or something, ITV show.
Yeah, that's right. So this is basically watching Simon Parkes' own videos about his experiences and things. And yeah, precisely that. He went on This Morning with, I think it was Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby, talking about his experiences. And he could show absolutely everything because he too, this is really interesting, isn't it, Neil? Because he had drawings and things and little sketches of his experiences, but they weren't derided or destroyed by Philip and Holly. They were very kind of interested, and they were kind of asking questions about it. But yeah, he had pictures of greys and kind of like mantid beings. And this is from Simon Parkes himself. He says that he wasn't allowed to show anything to do with the reptilians, no drawings or anything to do with the reptilians, and that was the only thing that he wasn't allowed to do on that show. Interesting, eh?
Yeah. So Tony, when you've gone on, they've never imposed any restrictions on what you can talk about or anything?
My relationship with the people at This Morning is absolutely bang on, matey. They're a lovely team at This Morning. There's no question of that at all with them. There really isn't. They're a great set of team, as in GB News as well. Lovely people. But This Morning, the standard has to be of a certain thing. It's all very laid back, but they expect a standard from you. And hopefully, my dream job for This Morning would be to go on there reporting the UFO news for them. That would actually be
that'd be lovely.
That would be a great little number, wouldn't it? Yes. So the team This Morning, first class, mate. First class.
On that very note, Tony, so tell us, second half of the show, what's new? So most people can find out about what's happened, what's kind of like your life story. They can see videos of you. And for anyone looking, have you got a website, Tony? TonyTopping.com?
Yeah, TonyToppingUFOs.com.
Okay, just say that again very clearly for us.
TonyToppingUFOs.com.
We'll put a link in the vision.
UFOs.com. Okay, so Tony, people can find out about things that have happened in the past and life story, etc. Moving on to this half of the show, what's new? What's new in Tony Topping land?
What's new is we've obviously got the book completed. That's quite an achievement because I never thought I would. The art in it is to die for. We've recently had a spat of UFO overflights over this house here, over my flat. They weren't coming in over the marine lake directly. They were coming in over the house and near the house. That's because I believe this is sacred ground, and that's what they were pointing out. My strong belief about the unidentified aerial phenomenon that I'm filming, which commonly is referred to as a tic-tac phenomena, is in line with the fact that I believe they are from the oceans. And I was told in communication with the UAP that they're not just from the oceans, they're from a parallel universe where there are oceans similar to ours. It seems the creator has created life at many levels. So the incident in 97 is actually linked to these things coming in. And they'll come in without warning as well, to make their presence felt. On GB News, you saw me film one of them coming in low. A lot of people have argued that it's the International Space Station. It isn't. A lot of people have said it's an aeroplane. It certainly isn't. It's what it is on the tin. It's unidentified aerial phenomena, and I'm one of the rare percent of the population that has a communication with them, and it's cost me quite dearly. So that's the kind of situation. So I've been filming them. I want to go out again tonight and film and see if we can get them. But what I need, I'll be my own self-critic here. How many white balls of light can you film? You know, what I need is real solid, good, jaw-dropping footage of them is what I'd like in an ideal world. I don't know whether that's going to happen, but I'm very proud of the book. It's now complete, as I say. And the newest thing, really, I suppose, is the interaction that happened with those from the parallel in terms of my paranormal activities is probably the newest thing that happened. They came in from the left side, as it were, from nowhere, and indicated that that's who they were. And what is especially interesting about that is they've indicated that there is kind of like a veil, like a separation line between us and them, and it's a mystery as to who put it there. And I've had some very mysterious goings on in that area, I have to say. It's similar to the fascinating story of the Beatles album Everyday Chemistry, which is said to be handed to a guy who was walking down the beach from a guy from a parallel universe who indicated that the Beatles had never split up, and this was their album from the parallel. And what is very interesting,
I've heard about this.
and it's called Everyday Chemistry. What is very interesting about it, the jury's out with me as to if it's real or not, but what is very interesting indeed is the fact that the sound engineers listening to it are a bit baffled at the fact that it is actually done in a studio. It's not remixed. It's not a layer upon layer of other music put together. It actually seems to be done in a studio, and they're baffled by it. And that is allegedly from the parallel. So
what we're saying, just to clarify for listeners, Tony, what we're saying is that there is some kind of parallel universe where this album was recorded, but not in this timeline, and somehow it's leached into here. How is it leached into here?
That's the mystery. I do not know. For example, my book is called I, Alien, Memoirs of a UFO Spy. I was utterly shocked when they said to me that the book in their universe is called Return to the Twilight. And my ultimate, freaks me out. It just freaks me out. And listen, I've got to be straight here. I don't know whether it's true or not. I don't know whether it's some military larking around with.
Are they saying there's a Tony Topping in their universe?
Sorry, say again.
Are they saying there's a Tony Topping in their universe?
Yeah. And the thing is that what I'd like ultimately is for, like the Beatles album, I'm expecting this mysterious book to turn up on my doorstep called Return to the Twilight, a bit like the Beatles guy with the tape. You see, you know, and it's interesting to note that they, what's the word? It kind of like that all came about because of an attempted abduction by the Greys. The Greys are very real. I've not seen reptilian, but I've had incidents that would indicate that these beings are real. And it's also
when you say real, as in physically turning up, not just kind of like
as in that kind of thing. So they kind of like what they don't tell you on the internet about all this is the fact that this when it happened to me, this Grey in particular, it kind of like they warped the reality around them. It's very bizarre. I dare open my eyes, but I knew it was here, and something came into the room and intervened, I kid you not, to stop it from happening. And it was powerful. It was.
What was it? Did you see what was intervening?
Yes, it would have been. I've forgotten the Jewish word for it. Shikana. So it was a Shikana type incident whereby you've got the presence of God around. So you imagine that that the presence of that in a compact space in a living room, that's going to radiate harmonics here, there, and everywhere. Hence, there being a chain reaction from a parallel. This is complex esoteric stuff. So
we're going back to the war here between the light and the dark.
You got it, mate. You got it, kid. Yeah. So there is a war between the light and the dark, and these beings called the Greys. It was quite bizarre because I couldn't understand why these UAP were flying over the houses here, and they were being chased by something. Because there is an alien Cold War. There definitely is in the skies above us. It's like the alien NATO versus the alien Russia. It's quite bizarre, but it does appear to be the case. And there seems to be some sort of conflict there. It went wrong after Roswell, where the US wanted to acquire technology and haven't really got any return for their investment. And of course, my book challenges that concept of fascism. What if you're a controlling order, controlling that? Who would want humanity to design an information superhighway similar that integrates with other kind of star nations? In terms of science and exploration, they wouldn't want that. It's a dictatorship, and the tentacles of that we're seeing, I think, echoing in our society today with the chaos that we're seeing, which I think is engineered to precision. And it's something that we've got to be ever watchful of. So the UFO stuff, very real. And as I say, the incident that happened to me was when I was asleep in here, and I'm wandering around, if you just indulge me, lads, I'm wandering around in this dream trying to find my house. But the house is replaced by a butcher's shop and a clothes shop, and a woman on a bike is coming towards me. And even as I'm speaking this, I think it's effing fucking freaky. I just can't get my head around it. Right? She's come towards me on this bike. She gets off the bike, and I said, I'm lost. I'm looking for my old house at Acacia Avenue. Do you know where it is? She just went, the year is 1997. You are in Oxford in a parallel universe. And I just couldn't, honestly, I couldn't believe it. And so the liaison began with all that, that they're there, they're present, they're watching out for us. It links in, I think, with Ronald Reagan's speech about, if there was a threat, we would be united. Well, it appears that there is a similarity between humans in the parallel and ourselves. One of the things that I learned from interaction with it, which I find mind-blowing, is that with them, alien abduction is not tolerated. Zero tolerance. Not allowed. And that's something we as in humanity in this timeline could learn from. And you couldn't make it up, mate. And I sit here in shock over what I've just said myself, because part of me is freaked out by it, and part of me is going, I don't quite believe what I'm saying, but it did actually happen. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of why, but nobody's telling me, you know?
So these Greys, so the Greys have been interacting with you directly.
The Greys, that's very, very nasty carry on there. I can only describe it as an ordeal. I can only describe it as just in bonkers. When it happened to me, when the incident happened to me of this kind of like divine intervention incidents, it was as if the Grey was actually seeking communion with it, as in Whitley Strieber's communion. And that's what was absolutely staggering. I wrote to Whitley Strieber, and he's completely ignored me on numerous occasions because there is an agenda. And I'm not quite sure what this agenda is, but there's some sort of agenda going on with this. And he completely ignored, and I'm a real deal contact experiencer, and he just ignored me. I mean, there'll come a time, lads, when I may need to do a lie detector test, and I'm having to work that out in my head, how that could be done. Because if a TV production company approaches me and says, we want you to do a lie detector test, but that's under their rules, and you've no idea how that might be tampered with. So I need to set it up in such a way that the evidence would not be tampered with independent, witnesses out of the way, do it in private, that kind of thing, and see what the results are. I've no objection to that, really. So, but the Greys, they kind of like, they speak English in a very uncouth manner. So it's kind of like a, hey, you bastard. They're not very nice speakings. They're just not nice at all. and I would not wish it on my worst enemy to come across one. And aliens control disclosure. They control UFO disclosure, most definitely. It's not humans that are controlling this information, it's alien. And it's very nefarious because it went in a certain direction after World War II, after Roswell, to a complete cover-up. It's kind of like fascist. It really is a fascist cover-up. It's not good. I don't know whether you've got any further questions, lads. I've waffled on for long enough, but it's I've got PTSD because of all this, so sometimes I can't articulate into words, and I suddenly get kind of distracted, and I can't get my narrative correctly. But basically, there was a near abduction incident, and it was intervened, and that was not liked by them. An intervention took place by a higher power, and this higher power has felt the colour of the Greys. So there is something going on. There's a big bone of contention among the star nations about abduction of human beings. And as I repeatedly say, in the parallel, as they call it, that is frowned upon. It's not allowed. So a stand is being made, and a stand needs to be made against all this, because we're going to implode. Humanity is going to destroy itself if we're not careful, and we're being constantly warned of that.
See, my argument for that I would put for the good aliens, or the good ETs, as it were, the ones that are holding back and not interfering because of the free will of man, I would say. But the thing is, it's a tilted table. It's not a fair war. People are being manipulated. People are being mind warped. Everything is being corrupted, and everything is being psyoped. So it's not really a fair argument to say that it's the free will of humanity. We're being manipulated into it.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. Very perceptive of you. That's actually not what's going on. From what I can just, it is a battle, a biblical battle between light and dark. It most certainly is. The Bible talks of other realms, out there. The Russians, for example, with their paranormal warfare unit, Troop 10,003, under the direction of a guy called General Savin, had a standard thing of recruits studying biblical scripture. They didn't recruit psychics. Minds were too noisy. They recruited like engineers and stuff like that because they had certain focused abilities, you see. And likewise, the Defense Intelligence Agency, when they approached a guy called Pastor Ray Boesch, they were interested to know with these guys about the demonic element of the UFO phenomenon and how it fitted in. And he was looking at this, and they were studying, the DIA was studying the work of David Bohm and Wholeness and the Implicate Order. A very simple example of what we're talking about here is glycerine filled with ink. You get a tube of glycerine, fill it with ink, move the glycerine, the ink disappears, move the glycerine again, the ink reappears. And that's a very simple kind of demonstration of realities that maneuver around us that we don't see, that are going on all the time. And so in the 1950s, the DIA were trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And they understood it was called non-human entity, or NHE, as they pronounced it. And therefore you could class it as a non-human entity problem. I would suggest that there's perhaps a private, a silent war going on with the US government and aliens at some level. And I think we're being helped. I think there's hope, Andy. I really do. But
you say kind of like the US government is working with them. Is that in a positive way or a negative way?
I think there is a divided camp. I don't quite understand the ins and outs of it. I really don't. I think there's a divided camp between what the Pentagon knows and what the Pentagon doesn't know. And I think that information is being kept from the key decision makers as to what is precisely going on. On saying that, for example, if it was, you see, on saying that, these ET, they fence it a lot. They can be very, secretive. I mean, as I said in my book, why don't they just land at Bryce Norton and meet the RAF or whatever and tell them what's going on? But that isn't happening with them. There's a protocol, like a barrier where they're keeping their distance for some reason. And that I do not understand. And I've seen them. I've seen these ET behind the UFO. But the why is eluding me. Why they're doing what they're doing, I do not know. But there is a greater good out there, Andy. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. It is watching over us, and I think we'll get there. But it's not going to be easy for the human race. And as to why there isn't intervention is a baffling question. My mother was dying of dementia. I looked after her until she died. I couldn't understand why they didn't intervene, but they didn't. Can't get a straight answer on it. Just can't. And it's frustrating, believe me.
I suppose what someone would say is that people have to die to make room for the new, so we can't intervene on things like that. You can slow people's lives down so they don't die to a certain point, but eventually everyone dies, and that's maybe a reason. I don't know. So the Nordics, you've had interaction with the Nordics a little bit. Now, they sound like the good guys in this. How would you describe the Nordics from your experience?
The Nordics are, how can I put it? The Nordics are secretive. These ETs are secretive. They're not all an open book with us. I think that they're preparing us. I think there's a wider galactic community out there preparing humanity for when it goes all Star Trek and we venture out into the big wide world. On saying that, however, there is a liaison going on. So it's not a secret space program. It's a secret liaison program. I would have reason to suspect. And therefore, there is that kind of like liaison going on with some extraterrestrial element, I do believe. And we're being lied to. Hence, there being a control of disclosure, because there isn't any disclosure. They're not telling you anything. Contrary to popular belief, they're not disclosing anything. It's a wall of silence, actually. And you get the people like Elizondo, Christopher Mellor, and all of them coming out with stuff on Twitter. But as I've hinted to them, they'll hit a brick wall of silence like the former Iron Curtain Cold War. They will hit the Berlin Wall, should I say. They'll hit that Iron Curtain of secrecy. And it's not good. And in the midst of that are the Nordics, who appear to fundamentally object to that. The Nordics are, people will say, in my experience, and I've written in my book, the Nordics are from Andromeda. I first saw them in 2014 when they actually did appear. I was absolutely shocked by it. Actually, you always are shocked. You're never prepared for what they look like, but there he was, blonde, blue-eyed, and he was saying a warning. He was giving a warning. The clocks were there. There was like these doomsday clocks. Very clear. They aren't done by Lloyd Canning. I tried to explain that to James Whale, but once again was completely overruled and trodden on by him. We couldn't even get that out in the public domain. One clock said 11:45, the other clock said 5 to midnight. And he was speaking to someone, this Nordic guy, but I didn't hear what he said. And I believe he was speaking to some sort of agency across an information network. And it may be that they're trying to alter timelines. It may be that they're trying to avert a tragedy. They're out there. They routinely come into our airspace, their ships and craft. They really do. And they have a command structure like you wouldn't believe, similar to the military. So when I was looking at all this, there was this command structure behind them, it would appear, like an exploration command, a judiciary, defense command. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that Andromeda is a populated galactic area. We're being lied to. There is life out there. And I was just amazed, absolutely amazed by it. The thing that I wrote in my book is that this guy in particular might be at risk himself from targeting. It's like Star Wars out there. It's all very bizarre. I don't know whether on reflection, as I hear myself speaking currently, I don't know if I've explained myself correctly with the Nordics. It was an absolute shock, actually, to see them, and I've wondered where they are for quite a while. The bombshell is dropped into my book as to what they were actually doing. I'm not going to give that away, I think, but they were actually doing something. All the journals and all the data that I have in my book indicate that they were working to a particular agenda with me. There were some hilarious moments with them, absolutely hilarious moments. It's indescribable that it happens in real life, but it does. And I don't know where it's leading me to. But in all of that, they've never said why. Not once.
How do they make themselves known to you? Do they just appear in the room? Or?
They'll just appear in sleep. They will appear in sleep. They will appear like that. I asked them to appear and leave a lock of hair. They said they couldn't do that. I did ask them a few months ago to fly over the Marine Lake, which they said they would, but they never have done. And the reason for that is because this is the power of what is behind it all. I think that access was denied to them to actually fly over. I really do. I'm living in a different world to everyone else. It's so bizarre. But I do think that was the case. I think they were told not to. And equally as well, they don't want to panic our military. I mean, you're talking advanced craft coming into our airspace. And that's a worry for the military. So there's that going on as well. The liaison I've not heard from them for quite a while now, but I do recall sat in a hospital bed at the time where I'd lost the house, lost my mother, all in the same year, and I was having major hernia surgery. I had an umbilical hernia. It was very serious. And I remember recovering in the bed and suddenly literally seeing this woman who was Nordic appear in front of me and say a few things about what was going on. It was quite shocking that they exist. I can't get my head around it, lads. I'm not bullshit. I just cannot get my head around what I've been subjected to and what I've witnessed. But it's there, it's happened, and I'm endeavouring to try and find out more. I'm just trying to think a bit more about the Nordics. They indicated that they were from the sea originally, and they indicated that they have 3 great spiritual works of creation. We've got the Bible, they've got 3 great spiritual works of creation, but we didn't get as far as to what that was. All of it is drip, drip, drip. None of it is full-on information. It's just all drip, drip, drip. But we know that they were communicating across an advanced communication network, as I say in my book, which is called SCOVs. They were relaying data, scientific information. But what is most staggering, Neil, of all, is that picture you did for me, which I thought was from San Francisco, is actually not San Francisco. It appears it's in the parallel.
Oh, right. Not from the future that we were initially thinking. Yeah.
It's in the parallel. It's in the parallel where, for example, San Francisco is called St. Austin. It's just bizarre, mind-blowing stuff. I just have a conflict in myself because once my book's done and once I do the film, I think it's time to retire because it's stretching me to my limits. In terms of perception and reality of what is going on around me. And I'd maybe like to walk away at some point. Now is not the time. I'd like to see the book done, the film made, that kind of thing, a little bit more TV stuff. And then it might be time to retire because believe me, lads, I've been through hell with it. And yeah, you are going to get people that are going to say, well, I'm a fantasist and a liar. But unfortunately, if I was, I'd have a peaceful life. But it's cost me in some ways, in ways that you could not describe. It's cost me dearly. And you always have to be wary what you're saying. You have to control, you have to censor yourself as to what you're saying. There are forces out there.
I don't think they'll let you retire.
No, they probably wouldn't, mate. No, they probably wouldn't. And that's the situation with it. But the Nordics are definitely there. The interaction occurred. In fact, what I'll do is I'll tell you that they told me in the hospital bed that I had a daughter to them, and I couldn't get my head around that. I really, really couldn't get my head around it. And I sometimes think about her, wonder where she is, wonder who she is. I'm told she'd be about 27 now. And it's just absolutely staggering. And through the book, as you read the book from the journal entries, you can actually tell as you're reading it what they're actually up to, but they've not told me, and I haven't noticed. So I'm writing my journals and all this kind of thing, and I haven't actually noticed what they're doing. They're very clever. But that seems to be what happened. And I often just wonder about her and if I will ever meet her. That's the thing, lads. Yeah.
Now, the Nordics, are they anything to do with any of these other human type races in the galaxy, if you like, or the universe? Like we've had Nick Sands talking about his experience with the Palladians. Are they anything to do with the Palladians?
Never seen one, matey. The best thing I can do, mate, is just say if I haven't seen them, I don't know. So
yeah,
and I could easily sit here, couldn't I, and fabricate it and say, well, yes, Neil, I've seen them, and the this or that. It's not going to happen.
I just wonder if the Nordics is the same, the same race, and we just
no, they're not.
No, they're not. Okay, but they both appear to be human advanced versions of ourselves, all beautiful looking. Maybe they are kind of related, but we don't officially know that yet.
We don't know. The Andromeda, for example, the Nordic of Andromeda have population centers, they have cities, they have transportation systems, they have governance. They mirror humanity very carefully from what I've seen. As for the Palladians, I've never seen one. Arcturians, definitely seen them, will never forget her. The humans in the parallel, that's a strange thing. The Greys, of course. And then there's kind of like Afro versions. There's an Afro version of the Nordic, like we would have people of colour. They have the same thing, absolutely staggering to see, staggering. And there's that thing that Corey Good talks about the chicken. Have you seen that? The chicken kind of.
These are blue people, the blue bird people.
The avian chicken thingy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is very strange about that, and I'm not validating him in any way, but what is very strange about that is there does appear to be some sort of race that I would describe as spiritual that look slightly avian from what I've seen. Kind of like with the hook nose, they look slightly avian. I don't know why, I don't know how. It happened many years ago. I saw it. Put the caveat in again that might be the military larking around with mind control. No idea, but that's what I witnessed. That's what I saw. So there's the redheads as well, the ginger-haired aliens, which appear to be out there. Very interesting indeed, Neil. You know.
Avian, for those listeners, nothing to do with Ridley Scott. That was another film. So, yeah, there are some bizarre. I mean, there was a strange encounter I read about or heard some guy talking about on YouTube or something. And it's where this guy was driving in a car, maybe down a desert road in the US, New Mexico, wherever, I don't know. And he saw this craft with, I think it's like a transparent sort of UFO or flying craft sort, and he could see some beings in it, and it got closer and closer and closer. And somehow this being, I can't remember whether it transported itself into the driver's seat of the car or just jumped in. I can't remember the detail. But somehow it ended up, this creature ended up in the guy's driving seat and was attempting to drive the car of this bloke who was completely freaked out. He had pushed himself to the far, in America you drive with the steering wheels on the left. He pushed himself to the far right at the front of the car to get away from this creature. And this creature, he said, resembled a kind of a bird thing. And he even made kind of tweeting bird-like noises as this creature was trying to put its feet on the pedals and drive the car. And eventually, obviously, this thing couldn't drive the car, and the car went off the road and crashed, and the bloke blacked out. And when he woke up, it was all gone.
Yeah. It's bizarre, isn't it? You see, it's a mad circus out there. It's just a dark comedy. It really is with them. I mean, the other one as well is that, as I've said, is that the UAP phenomenon that I filmed over here comes from under the sea. And those beings are as close to the movie The Abyss as you could get. They really are out there, and they're using our bases. And I thought that the US Navy may move to disclose something like that, but they dare not, because they don't quite. In fairness to them, it's not we do not know what they are. It's we do. Louis Elizondo has actually changed now from the media patter of we do not know what they are to we do not know what their intention is, which is quite correct. You don't know what their intent is. Even with my interactions, I do not know what their end game or intention is. And so the US Navy, when they have these TikTok incidents, are dealing with a civilization that is maritime, that knows the oceans better than human beings. And I think we're being warned about environmental disaster. I really, really do. And I think that the US Navy should open their hailing frequencies and communicate with them. But if you've got a fascist dictatorship controlling information in that area, they might not want that to happen. And so you have a conflict of interest into the level of like a Cold War going on. For example, navigation systems, propulsion systems will be totally different to humanity's technology, you see. And that's the thing. And so there's that hidden race. The Americans, if they recover a UFO, don't want the Chinese to get it. The Chinese don't want the Americans to get it. And so there's this technological race behind the scenes to acquire technology. And surprisingly, India is actually very much advanced on the UFO front with all this as well. A lot of people don't realize it, but they understand it very clearly. If you look, for example, in the Ladakh region, it's a no-go area for the Indian Air Force due to UFOs, or it was last time I looked,
Wow.
and it is rumoured that the Nordics have bases up there. And interesting enough, there's a testimony of a French farmer who was abducted in the 1960s, it would appear, and he was taken out there by the Nordics, it would appear, to show their base or whatever. But with the Nordics, you never quite know why they're doing what they're doing, and it's quite strange. It's a strange world. And what I can never get my head around is the fact that we're living in an environment where the world appears oblivious to it, but yet it's in plain view, and that's the thing,
What's frustrating is that the positive ETs probably do have the technology that could solve or at least help our environmental issues, but we haven't got that yet because they haven't shown themselves yet.
Yeah,
or at least
that's right. And I don't think with humanity at the moment we're not ready. We're just not ready. I just don't think it would be plain sailing. I really don't. I just don't think it would be plain sailing with ET and humanity at the moment. And I don't know the way forward. I really don't. You get these whistleblowers coming forwards that say that they've met with aliens and all this kind of thing. And in real life, they are there. They are very real. And I just don't quite know the way forward with it at the moment, or what direction we're going to go down. I think there is intervention at a very high level for humanity. I really do. I think we're going in a certain direction that I think will extend our capacity, extend the humanity's life expectancy. I think civilizations have a timeline, don't they? At the rate we're going at the moment, I think we're going to destroy ourselves if we're not careful. And we do need that intervention, Andy. We certainly do. But
it's going to be up to the positive ETs to say, okay, do we continue to let the humans have free will and allow them to destroy themselves, or do we violate free will but at the same time save them from themselves?
Exactly. This is the exact thing, and I think we'll find that there is some intervention going on behind the scenes. There is a liaison going on, and they've kept that very quiet. I think contact has been made with ET, and they've kept it very hush indeed. But we're hurtling at the moment down a certain avenue, down a certain track. For example, I do strongly believe that they had the cure for COVID. They had the cure, but they didn't wheel it out from that technology. The technology under unacknowledged special access projects would have probably had the cure, but they didn't wheel it out. And we've heard contact experiences from across the world indicate that their humanity is ruled by a dark force. It's a form of life that must be respected. We've heard that right across the board, haven't we?
Wasn't it even the Queen who said there's a government and then there's a shadow government?
Yeah, the Queen said, wasn't it? There are forces beyond our comprehension. Yeah. Roughly something like that. She said. And even Prince Harry, as I understand it, was hinting at that in a recent speech he gave to the UN.
What did he say?
I can't remember it verbatim, but he was hinting at strange things going on, a reality around us that was causing it. It was a hint, that something is indeed going on with us at the moment, and especially our country. And at an esoteric level, something is going on. I mean, the Russians under Boris Yeltsin, they had a guy called Boris Ratnikov, who founded the Department of Mental Security. It was to protect Yeltsin against outside psychic influence. Because they had a need to, because they did believe that there's a possibility that the human mind has no firewall from those type of influences. And as Ratnikov actually said, and by the way, I don't endorse what Russia's doing in Ukraine, but as Ratnikov rightly said, mankind owes nothing to nobody, and that's absolutely true. But I think we need to transcend and realize our ultimate spiritual destiny. I really do think that our higher ordered consciousness and peace upon earth is really the thing to strive for, isn't it?
So are we, do you think, with this COVID thing, because I was thinking as you was talking about that's I mean, you say that there was a cure all along for it and they just haven't released it, and I wondered if there was like a certain dark intention behind all this COVID thing for the human race and the certain medical procedures that they wanted us to take along with it. Do you think there was all is not quite what it seems on this COVID thing?
All is not quite what it seems. No, it isn't. All is not quite what it seems. There's a possibility, for example, if we were to take it to an extreme level, there's a possibility that our governments were indeed up against something that they couldn't really tell the public, and they had to sort it out. I mean, it's interesting to note, you know, just as a sideline, there's a guy out there who worked for NASA called Edward Bell Bruno. It's now public. It wasn't at the time, but he was having interaction with UFOs, working on propulsion calculations for NASA. And he indicated that his interaction with these ETs helped him solve the calculations that he needed. He went public with that. And equally, I have a friend who works for the Australian government, and she was working on a vaccine for COVID. And she indicated to me that she's been a contact experiencer herself, and she was having interaction with them that was maneuvering her. She had a particular problem with trying to create this vaccine, this thing. Anyway, her paper was peer reviewed. And it would appear that you just don't know where the intervention is. I believe that there's a possibility there is a paranormal element to it. There always is. And I think that, yes, this is how you would invade humanity. This is how you would take the most stealth. It's insipid. It's very creepy. It's not laser guns going down the street. I do think there's a paranormal element to it. I most certainly do. I lost a friend to COVID. Yeah, it was absolutely horrific.
That's sad. Sorry to hear that, Tony. I mean, me and Andy have both not had certain medical procedures. We stayed well clear of them for our own, you know, we've probably got pretty much similar reasons. So we're kind of glad that we did, really, given the fact that many people that have had these medical procedures have come down with ailments that they perhaps wouldn't have otherwise come down with, and they seem to think they're all tooled up and ready to battle COVID, when we're actually thinking, could it be that medical procedures are the things that are causing their illness in the first place, weakening their immune system, perhaps? Don't know what you think about that.
Well, it's hard to judge what is going on. I think that we're up against something that is a hidden enemy, and it will try anything at all to assault humanity at many levels. Our great spiritual works speak of it. I've witnessed it, and we have to be very vigilant. As Eisenhower said, only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can counter such effects upon us. And I think we're being warned for the very reasons that you said, Neil. Yeah, that there is a hidden enemy. It's deliberate. It's engineered. I'm appalled by what I see, the direction of events going in this country. I believe it's not by coincidence. I believe it's engineered, and that's not a conspiracy theory. It's actually, I believe that there's something hidden that's causing it on purpose, and it's quite intentional. And we have to, as a humanity, we have to be very vigilant about such things. We really do. But at the moment, we're not. The moment, it's profit before people, and it's very sad to see events going that way.
Yeah, because we had a guest on about a year and a half ago now. God, I forget his name. I can picture him, but I forget his name. And he said something about this guy that he knows who's a bus driver, but he won't reveal his name. But he keeps the identity of his friend secret. He only knows him. Maybe a few other people know him, but he's a bus driver in his day job. But this guy is very psychic. Apparently, he sees dead people. The dead seek him out to go and talk to him. And apparently, this chap, he had a visitation by, well, we thought it was spirits, but he kind of implies they're more entities, like UFO entities of sorts. But he was impressed. He was impressed to sort of go downstairs by telepathic voices saying, go downstairs to the living room. And he tried to ignore it, and they pushed and said, go downstairs. So he got up, went downstairs to the living room. Do you remember this story, Andy? It was
is it Darren Brown?
Sorry?
Was it Darren Brown?
No, it wasn't Darren Brown.
I don't know that.
So he went downstairs. He saw a blue light coming from the living room door. He thought, oh, is that the street lamp or something? Did I not draw the curtains last night, sort of thing, before going to bed? He opened the door ajar, and the light got brighter. And in the living room were three large men with long beards, long gowns, almost looked like great big Gandalf wizard type things. That's the kind of description I got. Two were sitting on the sofa, and one was to stand there, and he had like a staff. I mean, it's almost like a vision out of Lord of the Rings or something. These three tall beings. And they said, we've got to tell you this. This is very important. We've got to tell you this. He said, things are going to get bad from now on. Things are going to get really bad. He says, but you're not to worry. Don't worry about other people. Just be concerned with yourself. And they said, pay attention to what happens in America, because whatever happens in America will affect here in the UK. But they said, basically, pay it, don't worry about other people. Just concern yourself with yourself. That's what we've got to do. Things are going to get very, very bad, but things will get better in the end. There will be a kind of, figuratively speaking, a light at the end of the tunnel, but watch out. Things are going to get very, very rough. And I don't know whether they vanished in a pop or something. That was just the end of the message as it's relayed to us. And if I find the show, I'll link it here under YouTube, so anybody else that wants to go back and watch that show can watch it and hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But he said the name of this entity was called Barnabas, and he went around in a UFO, and he was like a librarian or something like that.
It's very odd you should say that, Neil, and I'm not just saying this. I'm not just saying this just because you've said it, because I'm a very plain speaking man, but I have had that name whispered to me on numerous occasions, and I have no idea why. And you've just solved the jigsaw for me. I've had that word whispered to me, Barnabas. I thought it was part of another name for Escovs, but I've had that word whispered to me, Barnabas. I've looked it up online. I couldn't understand what it was. I've therefore yet to meet them, but you've solved the jigsaw puzzle as to what that was about, because I've had it whispered in my ear. I was asleep and I heard that name whispered to me, and I've looked it up online. I'm thinking, what the hell's that about? Isn't that interesting?
Well, I'll send you the link for that, Tony, so you can watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's this theory that things have got to get so bad on this planet so people wake up and realise to take the planet into a better direction. I don't know what you feel about that.
Well, yeah, but of course, we rely on our elected leaders, don't we, to do that, and our government to do that. But they seem to be losing the grip. They really do, and it's all very worrying. And I think we need to make sure that we are an alert and knowledgeable citizenry. As I said with Eisenhower, only the mechanisms of a peaceful way forward will help humanity succeed. The thing that I'm concerned about, believe it or not, at an esoteric psychic level, is this planet turning on us. At the moment, we see the conflict in Ukraine, and I'm like what would be classed as an exceptional human experience. I can I've got this inner psychic radar that sees and hears things. It's quite bizarre. But for example, the other day, about a week ago, I was hearing this planet signal like whale song across the universe. It's total distress over what was going on. It's a bit like the tonal vocabulary from Close Encounters, where it was like a whale song, and it was communicating with something in another dimension. It's very advanced esoteric goings on. It really is, guys. But what is interesting, it sounded like planet Earth was exhausted. And the biggest worry of all is these world leaders sending us into wars and conflicts, and the planet turning on us. Nature being our enemy, the planet just saying, I've had enough, and it turns on us. And this is what we're at risk from as well. We are at risk from this, and we've got to make sure, as you have rightly said, Andy, we've got to make sure that we overcome that hurdle. I think there will be, as Neil rightly says, light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm absolutely staggered over the Barnabas thing. I just, as I say, that's just amazing.
He did come back. There is a slight sequel to this story.
Yeah.
And obviously this particular occurrence happened before we had the COVID outbreak. And I was wondering at the time, is it all to do with the COVID thing? But maybe that was just the start of it. And maybe things that, with all this energy and all this other stuff going wrong, that's just the first turn of the cog, and the bigger wheels are going to start turning now. And this Barnabas reappeared to this guy maybe a year and a half later. And basically, again, this guy was just walking through his hallway at home. He saw a blue light coming from the living room, and the door opened, and out came this tall figure, presumably bending his head down because he's so tall, 8 feet or whatever he is, Barnabas in his clothes and everything. And he said, I've come again because, this bus driver, he says, you're worrying for other people. And we told you, you mustn't worry for other people. Just be concerned with yourself. But this guy is so sort of caring for people that he can't help but be concerned. But they've obviously picked up on it. They're saying, look, don't worry about other people. Just be concerned with yourself on a daily basis. And this being then wrapped his cloak around this guy, like a great big bear hug, if you like, and just wrapped him up in it. And then suddenly he had gone. But the guy thought, oh, that's weird. So he decides, well, I'm going to get a cup of coffee. So he goes into the kitchen. And as he goes into the kitchen, there's a tug as he gets caught on something like the door. And he realizes he's still somehow wearing this cape or cloak belonging to this Barnabas. And it's caught on the door handle or something. And you're thinking, oh, my God, And I said to our guest, does he still have this cloak then? But he wasn't sure. Maybe it dematerialized later on or something. But somehow this cloak, I would suggest in a symbolic sense, like people talk about a cloak of protection in spiritualist circles. I wondered if it was something like that. The fact that he wrapped him up in it in kind of universal love or something,
Has he still got it is the question.
This is it. My God, I'd love to.
Because if he's still got it, then I would call it an apport.
Yeah, it sounds like a kind of apport that stayed with him, and the delivery guy, the spirit Barnabas, just went off somewhere. But
on saying that, guys, what is disturbing about that is that being magnificent alien librarian appears before him and says sod all to him. Really, there's nothing of any information value that being has come out with. What is the agenda? Why couldn't he have told him about where they came from, their science, their education? None of that came forth, did it?
Well, he may have told him, but we haven't heard those stories. We've only got snippets, and we haven't got the full picture.
It irritates me. Yeah,
but then we go
back
it's
kind of frustrating
thing, don't we?
Yeah, you got it, Andy. That's what I'm trying to express, mate. Yeah, it's the drip of them. It's this.
Yeah.
It's this kind of information gap that we have from them that's just irritating, frankly. Absolutely.
However, we do have plans to bring our guest that told us that story back on at some point.
That's fantastic.
So we will try and get some further information from him at some point. Just been given a lovely drink here. Thank you, Don.
Look at you, mate. Look at you.
Kool-Aid. Jim Jones's Kool-Aid.
Not even sure. I think it's cider, actually. She did say she's getting some cider, so I wasn't expecting to be drinking this now.
It looks like the blood of bats.
Look at you.
Look, it could be.
That's blood. Neil has actually been, before this show, Neil has actually been on a ritual in Stonehenge with his druid friends, and they've sacrificed.
I feel like I'm in that pub set on GB News. Which, Tony got a beer. He got a beer on that.
They have a drinks cabinet at GB News a mile wide. As soon as you walk in, you're offered a drink. Honestly, they've got a drinks cabinet. I couldn't believe it.
No wonder they're talking about COVID the way they are. They're all
absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Gosh, yes.
Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes roughly before the end of the show. So we'll start to wrap this one up then. So you were talking, Tony, that you want to kind of get out of all this and retire and things like that. Is that likely to happen? Do you think you'll be?
I don't know, mate. I just don't know at the moment. I just know that I'm driven, until I get orders from on high. Whatever's guiding me throughout all this tells me to now's the time, then that's it. But at the moment, I'm being driven by mysterious guides. I'm very lucky to be sat here to tell you the tale. I'm lucky to be alive. I don't mind telling you. I really am. And it's this gift that I have. I don't even know what it is. And sometimes I see it as a curse. Have you got one of the pictures there then, Neil, just as a matter of interest?
Not. Well, I could find it, but they're going to take about 15 minutes for me to dig it out. But I know you sent some through, so I will add this into the edit, these pictures.
Yeah, okay, all right, mate. So but basically one of them is like the Jacob's Ladder staircase one, which demonstrates kind of like the higher cosmic consciousness. working. It's out there. It's absolutely magnificent stuff. And the other one is like a thing where there's a woman's face in like a triangle, all very brightly coloured, and that's the avatar of Arcturus, which is in celebration of the alien woman that I met at my lowest ebb. She was absolutely stunning. I'll never forget her. These have real effects. You see, everybody laughs. Well, not you don't, Neil, of course, and you don't, Andy, but out there's the chortle factor with people like us, and I think that attitude has to change. We put ourselves on the line in the public domain, and we are kind of like a minority, and we have to make sure that we I think we have to make sure that we are fairly allowed to express our views about what happened to us, and it's still ongoing. The biggest clincher of all is all I need, really, and it's the game changer. I just need them to come in and do a light show for me, and leave people with no doubt that they were there, and the elephant in the room for me. And if that does happen, I'll be thinking, once my book's published and the film done and the footage I've got, we'll be thinking of just retiring from it, definitely. But as you say, I don't think I will retire. There'll always be questions. There'll always be inquiries. But that's the general gist of it. I do want to film something very good. I'm waiting for that to happen. I need that.
You kind of answered the next question I was going to ask. Let's say, in the ideal world of Tony Topping, what would happen next if things could go how you would want them to go?
Oh well, in the ideal world, a successful author, award-winning film, nice girlfriend, and a rescue dog.
Oh, a rescue dog.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's all I wish for. A bit of peace and a nice rescue dog. I'd love that. I think that would be in the normal, and just not having to look over my shoulder all the time. And it's not a peaceful path. It really is not a peaceful path at all, this one. GB
News actually has a rescue dog section by the very guy who interviewed you, something Christie.
Yeah, he's a very, very nice guy, Patrick Christie. Yeah, very nice guy. And
that's in that name. He has a rescue dog section each week, I think. So there's your rescue dog.
They're good, aren't they? They were very good to me. I think I've got to let the matter of the other car crash interview go. You'll probably see that on Channel 5 at Christmas in one of those shows that the went wrong.
I think, Tony, the mindset of humanity and society has moved forwards in a positive way, generally speaking, because I think James Whale was coming from a position of the mindset of Terry Wogan in the 1990s interview. And I think, judging by the comments from the videos, I don't think people were on his side. I think they view him as a bit of a dinosaur, to be honest.
Exactly, mate. You've got to be honest with yourself, Andy, and you've got to be a bit of your own doubting Thomas, and you've got to be frank. And if you don't know any, don't embellish. That's what I say. Never embellish. Don't exaggerate. Just tell it as it happened. As I say, I'm trying to get my head around it myself, matey, and I'm not finding answers. We're having the interactions and the experiences, but we're not finding the answers as to why at the moment.
Okay, so Tony, if people want to find out more about you, you've got a website. Can you repeat that again for everybody?
Yeah, so the website is tonytoppingufos.com. That's tonytoppingufos.com. Please feel free to email me so you can put your name down for when the book comes out. It's got 97 illustrations in it. It tells the story of the operations I was involved in, the UFO phenomena. It's written as fiction to protect the innocents, and it's written in memory of my mother. It's called I, Alien Memoirs of a UFO Spy.
Excellent stuff. Well, we wish you well with that. Looking forward to seeing that coming out. It'll be out on Kindle, but not print. Is that right?
Yes, at the moment, matey. We're getting it all sorted. That's it. And then the next job will be probably a film of some description, Neil. That will be the next job to do.
That'll be a job for me, looking through the wrong end of the camera, especially after a couple of ciders.
Yeah, certainly. We got to make it absolutely great. So these are things to look forward to. Yeah, thank you, lads. You've been wonderful. Thank you.
We want to be as fair as we can to you. You know, we don't disrespect anybody. If people have got amazing stories, we just want to listen to them. And if people make up their own minds at the end of the day, what they think of everything,
of course, and they're entitled to do that. And we should defend the right for them to do that as well. Thank you, lads. Over and out.
Well, it's lovely chatting to you. Good luck with everything. And thank you for joining Andy and I on the official Paranormal Peep show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. It's good night from Andy. Good night, Andy.
Good night.
Good night.
Just
And
before we go, lads, we go, I'm going to head out to the marine lake now with my camera. And if I film something, you will be the first to know.
Okay, and
Fantastic.
where is the marine lake for those that want to wonder?
It's not far from me. It's kind of like the marine lake Southport is like a big boating lake. It's Southport.
Up in the north of England.
Yeah, northwest.
Okay. But they can find it on Google Earth if they're really curious about it.
The marine lake Southport, matey. Yeah, Southport, cool. Beautiful town.
All right, lovely stuff. Well, it's good night from us. Good night from myself and my blood sacrifice on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. We'll see you next month. Thanks for joining us. Good night, all.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.